Okay, so let me, even though I explain it on the website, I'll spend the last 10 minutes here going through the economic graphs that depict these different aspects: consumption, production, and investment. Okay, you're doing good, everybody. Hang in there with me. Before I do that, I'll mention again, Thursday is time for you to bring questions. I'll be prepared to answer any questions you have about the homework, questions understanding some of this stuff. We'll work on that and do the best we can. Back on the website, I will put this video up so you won't see it now, but I'll have the video up so you can go back and check this stuff out. Okay, any other questions? All right, so the last 10 minutes, let's go to the website. Okay. So these first two graphs are utility graphs, okay? And what they do is they depict the relationship between health and our Z goods to utility, okay? So moving upwards on this graph, moving upwards means I am achieving higher levels of well-being or happiness or utility, however you want to measure that. How would one measure that? There's been some good studies that have tried to measure utility as different forms of happiness. There are questions that people ask to help diagnose things like depression or anxiety. There's questions about how often have you felt happy in the past 2 weeks? Another question might be, how often do you feel downhearted and blue? That's an actual question in a battery of questions for depression. So you could, and different people answer, on a 1 to 10 scale. I've been happy a lot. I'm not often downhearted and blue. Questions about anxiety. I'm not feeling anxious. Other long-term things. Do you feel you're achieving your life goals? That's another question. If I feel I'm doing good in all those aspects, it's a greater level of utility. So going up this graph is greater levels of utility. And going to the right is greater levels of these other things. So on this graph, we have Z. In this graph, we have H. Okay. So given a low level of health capital, if I'm in a low level health state, whatever that means, poor immunity, poor mental well-being, what this graph shows is even if I increase other aspects of life, I'm limited in my ability to increase well-being. Okay? If I spend a lot more time with my family and doing these things, I only increase my utility, my overall utility, to this point, U1. Meaning that my time with family, as precious as it is to me, is limited by my health. My overall well-being is here limited by my low levels of health. I may be spending time with family, but I can't run and play soccer with my kids, or I can't take them to somewhere I'd like to take them because I'm afraid I'm especially likely to perhaps contract COVID or be really negatively affected by it. So here, health is constraining even my time, more time with kids. So how can I hope to do that? Well, either some way to improve my overall health status from, say, H1 to H3, even if I have a little bit of time with my kids, maybe because I'm running more or working more, even though I have a little bit of time with my kids, my utility, my overall well-being is higher. And then a move to spend more time with kids would really increase my utility. So health helps me achieve that, okay? Another thing, and so this graph is just the opposite, okay? Here I'm trying to increase health, but health would be limited if I don't have the means to do things with my friends or spend time with my kids, okay? It's just the opposite. But there's one thing I want to listen here. It's the idea of diminishing marginal utility, okay? That's a concept you can review. I have a link to review that. And it's this. Let's say I have a very low health level, okay? Making investments to improve my health, okay, will have relatively, well, here I'll do it from H-min. Let's say H-min, oops. What happened? Oh no. 1 second, sorry. Okay. Let's say H-min is a point where I'm very sick, compromised health-wise in different ways. So a small investment in greater health by moving from H-min to H1 will have large effects on my overall well-being, okay? So the example that I like to use for this is vitamins, okay? Vitamins have, physicians typically prescribe vitamins to people who have some kind of underlying health issue, or women who are pregnant. Vitamins in developing countries, just giving kids that are undernourished access to things like vitamin A, vitamin C, have tremendous effects on their health, okay? So that means at low levels of health, a small investment in vitamins has tremendous marginal utility gains for them, okay? Now we move for H2 to H3. For people who are not in those relatively diminished states, okay? And I don't mean diminished in terms of anything bad, but due to underlying disease or due to additional strain on your system from being pregnant, or due to being undernourished because you live in a poor country, okay? That's health min. If you are not in those states, if you are someone who's relatively eats a well-balanced diet and does not have extenuating medical circumstances, let's say you're here at H2. You might spend a lot on vitamins, right? But what is the gain? For most people, it is very small, okay? This is an unknown thing or unthought about thing about the billion-dollar vitamin industry. Now, again, there's certain, strains on your body. If you are powerlifting or a very top level athlete, you gain some things from it, but you do not gain as much as someone who is in those very diminished or strained um, health states. So, in fact, one study I saw a while back said that people in the US have the most expensive urine in the world. Why is that? Because a lot of the vitamins that we take, the additional vitamins that are not necessary for our health, just get passed through our system. Okay, so we're spending money for waste. So that is the movement from 2 to 3. So that is an example of something that we would think is super important, and it is for some people at low health states. It is less or perhaps not helpful for people that generally are having a well-balanced diet in other health states. This is an example of diminishing marginal utility. And in general, any health investment has this aspect. Okay. Investments in low levels of health are going to generate much more happiness. Spending additional money on health will generate perhaps a lot less happiness, or little, just a little less happiness. But this is one thing that I want you to think about going forward. Okay. Annotate. That one's especially important one as we start thinking about who should get health funding for health. Should it be people in low health states where you can generate lots of things, or not? Okay. The other thing about consumption is that people have different preferences, which is just fine. Some people have preferences for less healthy activities, or Z-type goods, or your utility may come from eating less nutritious food. Mine certainly does. I ate a big old hamburger that was delicious the other day, and I knew it wasn't healthy for me, but it made me happy. Versus doing things that make us happier. So read through that and know that basically different people have different preferences. It's not just about, not everybody gets happy by running half marathons. Okay. I do. I'm not saying that you should. I do. Not everybody gets happy from going to the gym. Our economic models want to think about, and it's not a value judgment, but think about the reality, and the reality that people do different things. Okay. So that's what the preference piece does. These 3 graphs are on production, and basically this is the health production curve, where I started saying greater levels of health generate more time possible for working. Okay. Greater levels of health generate more time possible to work, exercise, or spend time with your kids. Okay. This is the production of health curve that lowers time being sick, which I covered. When you have more time to put at different levels of work, okay, as you increase time for work at a given level of health, you can generate higher income. Okay. So if you have, and so these graphs start going together. At low levels of health, you have less time to spend working or spending time with your kids. At higher levels of health, you have more time to do both of those things, and earn income. So H1 and H2 represent Y1 and Y2 here. These 2 things go together. And then finally, you kind of put it all together in this PPF. At low levels of health, this is the production of H and Z, which are both things that go utility. So at low levels of health, I have less money to buy both running shoes and piano lessons. So I'm achieving lower utility. I'm producing less and achieving lower levels of utility. At higher levels of health, I can buy more of those, the gym membership, the shoes, and those piano lessons for my kids. I both produce more health and these other things, and I can achieve higher goals. Okay. So we are out of time. Again, thank y'all for staying with me. That was a hard hour of a very difficult model. I will put it on the web Thursday. If you want to join, again, it's optional. I'll go over the last bit, investment as a health. That'll only take a few minutes. Then we will do questions. So that's all I have for you today. If you need to get off, go ahead. Thank you again for being with me. If you have questions, feel free to stay on. I'll be on for a few more minutes. Thank y'all.
Have a good one.
You too.